when we get into sales conversations or just conversations in general with people, we've already built a relationship from day one, that they already have some trust. And when you think about how deals get done, whether that's in the B2B space or B2C space, typically you don't buy stuff off people that you don't feel like you've got some sort of a relationship with, that you don't fundamentally trust to deliver whatever it is that you're buying. So to get a leg up on that, to get a massive head start because people already feel like they know you and understand what you do, I think that has a direct impact on revenue. I wasn't really expecting results full stop in the sense of leads. That wasn't really why I went into the process, but nevertheless, those results have exceeded my expectations, whatever those were, because we've had 2 direct deals directly from LinkedIn. Those averaged, I think, about 30 grand each, something like that. We've also had a partnership, which is with a fairly large brand, referring work to us around a particular sprint that we have. That's just getting kicked off, but obviously has fairly significant revenue potential in the long term. And I say all of that is directly attributable to the activity on LinkedIn. All of them was completely new prospects. We had 0 interaction with them before. So, from a lead gen perspective, it wasn't what we were expecting, but very, very happy that that's what's happened. It's still not a lead gen campaign. That's not the measure of success, is how many leads have we got this month. It's a piece of brand activity, as we've been talking about, and, it should be viewed as such. So, leads are nice, but for me, it's about awareness. It's about creating a really strong platform for our message. Yes, there's been a commercial upside to it on a direct attribution sense, but actually it's just building the RevSpace brand, building my personal brand, building awareness of growth system design, things that we want to talk about. That was the objective, and it's delivered in that area. It's really helped me clarify my thinking around how we position the business, around how we kind of clearly articulate the benefits, about how we be really reductive about that kind of brand story, because you need to be, when people are scrolling down a news feed on LinkedIn, you don't have a load of time and to have a really convoluted kind of explanation of what you do. You need to be really succinct. And I think that just the process of going through this and trying to kind of create that messaging framework for my personal brand actually had a knock-on impact in the business. I think these kind of 1-hour meetings on a Monday are brilliant because they're conversational. They're really well structured, and you obviously do a lot of prep for them, but ultimately we talk for an hour. For me, initially, I found it, pretty remarkable how you were able to produce a post that was, detailed, accurate, technically accurate, tonally correct, pretty much from week one, which I just kind of blew me away. I suspect there's a lot to do with that process and that workflow of having a conversation so you can understand, tonally how I would talk about stuff. And, we can ask probing questions, and it's not just about like creating a brief and you go write some posts. Like we really have a human interaction around things to clarify it. And it comes out really strongly, I think, in the post. Not only would I recommend you, but I regularly do recommend you. I know that you've already started working directly with some of our customers. So I'm a massive advocate, and I would 100% recommend you to any other founders who want to build their personal brand.
Today, I am joined with Chris, a founder and a managing partner at RevSpace, a growth consultancy for B2B tech companies. Simply put, Chris and his team help grow businesses by systemizing their go-to-market strategies. So what does that exactly mean? Could you give us a short little intro of RevSpace and yourself, what type of companies you work with, and the type of services you offer?
Yeah, sure thing. I mean, I think you put it perfectly yourself, that in a nutshell, we help complex B2B brands, mainly in the tech space, to grow by helping them systemize the way that they generate revenue. So we call this process growth system design, which is essentially the application of systems thinking theory to the way that they approach revenue generation. So we do consultancy sort of work around how they structure the organization in terms of team, remuneration, goal setting, collaboration rhythm, decision making, lots of things. But also we do what we term applied delivery. So that involves our teams creating the foundations within their tech stack for this kind of new system. So that's CRM implementation, process design, integration and automation projects, but then building on top of these with campaign activities such as like account-based growth. So yeah, our whole kind of stack of services that are really just around that sort of organizing principle of let's build a revenue system within the business rather than a set of sort of disparate activities and teams.
So we first connected at the end of 2023 on LinkedIn as you were interested in personal branding services and getting more active on the platform. I'm just curious, why was this something that was on the cards for you, and why were you looking for a partner in helping you execute this?
At the time, I'd been reading a lot about kind of founder-led growth strategies and had become a real kind of believer in the potential there. I mean, ultimately, people want to interact with people, over brands, maybe not instead of, but certainly in preference to. And yeah, I certainly kind of see this within LinkedIn that algorithmically they seem to prioritize content from people over brands, and certainly in my kind of background and history in marketing, we see content that is human led performing massively better than stuff that's just around the company. So, I knew this was something that I needed to do better, that we needed to do better. And for me, we expect people to work with us because we're experts in our field. And I knew that, I absolutely was not an expert in founder-led branding. So that's why we got in touch with you and Social First, because ultimately you guys are the experts and we wanted an expert in our corner to kind of help us achieve our goals there.
Marketing in the B2B space is often looked as stale and boring. How do you view brand building in the B2B space, and how does building the founder's brand fit into this for you?
I think you're absolutely right that B2B branding certainly historically has a really sort of dry kind of corporate thing about it. Enterprises doing businesses with other enterprises, but there's been so much development, I think, in the startup space that brand, I think, can be exciting, and founder-led branding is one of the ways I think of making this work. So for me, brand is the cornerstone of a successful growth strategy. You need a strong and clear brand so that prospects understand the value that you bring to solving their problems. And crucially, they need to trust that you can deliver on the promises that you're making in your marketing. So I know something that we see time and again within our customers is that brand is underinvested in, within the B2B space. And for me, I think it's because leaders have become somewhat addicted to this kind of concept of cost per lead and direct attribution and needing to know exactly how many, tens of pounds, a pound spent on sales and marketing activity has made you. And, sadly, buyer behavior in reality isn't that linear. They don't just do one thing and then buy something off you, or a couple of things in some neat attribution curve. And I think brand spending is often caught kind of in the crossfire of those attribution conversations. And for me, that kind of founder-led branding, personal branding in general, it's a super important component of that overall brand story of the business, because it sort of humanizes the business and it enables prospects to hear directly from the leadership team about what they think is important and how they go about solving problems. And what's been really interesting to me since we've started doing this is that I often get people kind of comment to me that they feel like they know me better now, or that people I've not met before feel like they know me full stop. And as much as that's kind of strange on some levels, it's really amazing on others, because it means that we kind of when we get into sales conversations or just conversations in general with people, we've already built a relationship from day one, that they already have some trust. And when you think about how deals get done, whether that's in the B2B space or B2C space, typically you don't buy stuff off people that you don't feel like you've got some sort of a relationship with, that you don't fundamentally trust to deliver whatever it is that you're buying. So to get a leg up on that, to get a massive head start because people already feel like they know you and understand what you do, I think that has a direct impact on revenue and that's a brand activity. So I think it's really, really critical.
Amazing. Yeah. I mean, there's a stat that says you need around 7 hours of touch points with somebody, or 7 touch points in general, to kind of start building some sort of trust and be ready to buy. And I think content is such a great way to fill those hours. You record something once or you tell a story once, and it can be consumed by several, people, tens of people, hundreds of people, thousands of people might see it on LinkedIn. So
Yeah,
it scales really well.
100%. And I think the number of those touch points is only getting bigger. I saw a stat recently that suggested that if you're really highly personalizing a bit of sales outreach, you're at like 24 touches or something now.
Mm,
And if you don't personalize, it was like 100. I mean, whoever
mm.
counted that, I've no idea. But I think the more you can do ultimately to kind of drive that understanding of who you are and what you stand for, the less you've got to do in that process later on.
Absolutely. And also the content on LinkedIn as well, it doesn't feel as salesy, even though they're exposed to it, but it's like indirect rather than somebody constantly following up with you on email or
Yeah.
so I feel like that's a huge bonus as well. So we officially kicked off in February this year, 2024. How did you find the onboarding and the brand and content strategy development?
Ultimately, I thought the process was great. I thought it was really clear. I thought it was really detailed. We went into a lot of depth in terms of understanding me, understanding the business, and all of this was really well documented within Notion. So it was kind of all accessible. Nothing was unclear as to why assumptions were being made about stuff. So I thought that was great. I think that to some degree we actually slowed the process down. At the time we were in a period of a bit of strategic, I think, reevaluation of how we were positioning the business. But actually, I think I would say actually one of the biggest benefits in terms of working with you has been that it's really helped me clarify my thinking around how we position the business, around how we kind of clearly articulate the benefits, about how we be really reductive about that kind of brand story. Because you need to be, when people are scrolling down a news feed on LinkedIn, you don't have a load of time and to have a really convoluted kind of explanation of what you do. You need to be really succinct. And I think that just the process of going through this and trying to kind of create that messaging framework for my personal brand actually had a knock-on impact in the business. Whether that would be the case for everyone, but I think we were just at that certain point in time where just sitting down for an hour or two and thinking about the problem and really how we kind of articulate what we do has just been a hugely kind of unexpected benefit of working with you.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's the same for me. It's been really, really fun, like working with you and like figuring it all out and being like a sounding board and almost yeah, adds like another dimension to the partnership, which has been really good.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, big time.
so yeah, absolutely. So, what are your thoughts on the content creation side? Once we started with our regular posting, the reviewing process, and the quality of writing as well, and how does it suit you, the workflow that we have?
I think it's great. I think these kind of 1 hour meetings on a Monday are brilliant because they're conversational. They're really well structured, and you obviously do a lot of prep for them. But ultimately, we talk for an hour, and I think that for me initially, I found it pretty remarkable how you were able to actually produce a post that was detailed, accurate, technically accurate, tonally correct, pretty much from week one, which I just kind of blew me away because having worked with other people in the social space before, not directly on personal branding, but there's always just expect a ramp period, and that kind of wasn't there. And I suspect there's a lot to do with that process and that workflow of actually kind of having a conversation so you can understand, totally how I would talk about stuff. And, we can ask probing questions, and it's not just about like creating a brief and you go write some posts. Like we really have a human interaction around things to clarify it. And it comes out really strongly, I think, in the post. So I think from that perspective, the workflow is great. And, I actually really, we have our call on a Monday. Monday's a super busy day for me, but actually it's a call I really look forward to because not only is it just nice to kind of, have a conversation, as you say, for you to kind of be a bit of a sounding board, but I often go away from that call often having some clarified some things that maybe even I've just been background processing where we're talking about brand or messaging or whatever. But I just think sometimes that process of having to explain something in the knowledge that it's going to be written about is just a really good discipline for kind of clarity. So yeah, I think it's been a great process and not one that I'd want to change the workflow on at all.
Amazing. Yeah, I think the why it works so well as well is because you are really you're open to explaining things. You're open to answering the questions that I have, even if maybe sometimes it's really could be like basic for you or something that you do day in day out, but you are explaining it to somebody who maybe doesn't have an idea, and that helps me create that concise content that's easy to read and consume on LinkedIn, because we're trying to take something complicated, what you're doing, and make it simple, make it easy to consume. So yeah, I think thanks to you also being great at open at communication and willing to answer all the questions that I have. So yeah, I think that's why it works also really well. So we also booked an in-person content shoot early on. We produced 9 short-form videos. Actually, we produced more, but I think we posted 9 from that shoot. How did you find that process? And yeah, generally the quality of content as well.
I mean, the process on a personal level was actually slightly embarrassing. I mean, I'm not a person that wants to be in the spotlight. I don't kind of need people looking at me. So kind of going through, a day where we spent basically in a WeWork, where I was just constantly changing outfits and wandering around and having pictures taken of me and, making videos, I thought was, the process was great. There was absolutely nothing wrong with the process, but it was somewhat outside my personal comfort zone. It's not the sort of thing I've done before. Weirdly, I'm kind of happy standing up on a stage and talking at a conference or whatever, but actually just being like the one guy in a WeWork that someone's randomly pointing cameras at is kind of a different thing. But the output was just 110% worth it. The pictures were great, the video was great. The content has performed really well in the last 3 months. It's had really, really good engagement. So whilst it was outside of my personal comfort zone, it was something that was hugely worthwhile. And it's something that I think we're going to have to be doing again soon as we've kind of got through that bank of content. And not only I think hopefully it'll be slightly less embarrassing this time because I would have got used to it, but I think we can also prep better in terms of, how I'm bringing content to the table and how that we kind of have a really much more cohesive kind of theme to the videos, for instance, whereas before I'd written a lot of stuff which was all interesting but a little bit scattered. So again, I think just going through the motions, going through the process, building up the kind of relationship with you and your team in terms of how we go about authoring content and kind of conceiving content, that is going to, I think, pay dividends as we go forward.
Amazing. Could you share also some of the results we have got on LinkedIn and throughout these 6 months?
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, I wasn't really expecting results full stop in the sense of leads. That wasn't really why I went into the process, but nevertheless, those results have exceeded my expectations, whatever those were, because we've had 2 direct deals directly from LinkedIn. Those averaged, I think, about 30 grand each, something like that. We've also had a partnership, which is with a fairly large brand, referring work to us around a particular sprint that we have. That's just getting kicked off, but obviously has fairly significant revenue potential in the long term. And say all of that is directly attributable to the activity on LinkedIn. All of them was completely new prospects. We had 0 interaction with them before. So, from a lead gen perspective, it wasn't what we were expecting, but very, very happy that that's what's happened. But, for me, it's still not a lead gen campaign. That's not the measure of success, is how many leads have we got this month. It's a piece of brand activity, as we've been talking about, and, it should be viewed as such. So, leads are nice, but for me, it's about awareness. It's about creating a really strong platform for our message. And, the real win for me has been the amount of impressions and engagement that we've had with key posts and kind of like key topic areas. So, for me, that has been the benefit. Is yes, there's been a commercial upside to it on a direct attribution sense, but actually it's just building the RevSpace brand, building my personal brand, building awareness of growth system design and things that we want to talk about. That was the objective, and it's delivered in that area in spades as well.
Yeah, really happy with the results that we've got, and hopefully more to come. So we are actually currently reassessing your content strategy and messaging to align it with the new direction the company's going in. Could you share some of the insight into what's happening behind the scenes at RevSpace and what's on the cards for you this second half of the year and onwards, and how does Social First fit into this?
Yeah, sure thing. I think this is still kind of unfolding right now, but I think, the way that we're thinking about it is, yes, there's been a commercial upside to it on a direct attribution sense, but actually it's just building the RevSpace brand, building my personal brand, building my personal brand, building awareness of but yeah, there's been a lot of change in the last sort of 9 months structurally with the business. We've gone from being sort of some independent businesses that happen to be owned by me into more of a sort of a group structure and having a more kind of coherent approach there. But in doing that, I think we've also learned some lessons, and that's driving some further change, particularly in terms of how we position our offering to the market. Ultimately, our business is pretty diverse. Despite the fact we've got a very tight ICP, it's been tempting, I think, in the past 9 months to try and talk about everything that we do. And, moving forward, it's going to be about really focusing on that kind of unique value that we provide. And that's the role of our growth system design methodology in helping B2B organizations grow in a predictable and sustainable way. And Social First will be there with us, making sure that we bring this message to life, in a way that really makes sense through my personal brand, and helping me and actually the business in general to kind of curate and distill all of those many, probably hundreds of things that we could be talking about into a strong and consistent message to our prospects. And also, I think for me, something we hadn't thought about so much at the start, but we've got a lot of experience. We work with some amazing customers. We've got an amazing team, and we have this kind of strong unifying idea of how we go to market and how we support our customers in creating value. So actually, I think increasingly LinkedIn can be a platform for helping to support other B2B sales and marketing professionals in their growth goals, just by sharing some knowledge and going to that. It's not about leads. I think it really, really isn't for me. I think what we would like to do is just ensure that there's a wider understanding of kind of the role of the system within within the go-to-market strategy formation process, and certainly the sort of revenue operating system within organizations. And that's something that we're going to be talking a lot more about, and I know that you'll be there helping us do that and stay on message.
Amazing. Yeah, looking forward to the new direction, definitely. Finally, would you recommend us for other founders? And in your opinion, what type of founders or business owners would benefit from this service?
Yeah, I mean, first up, not only would I recommend you, but I regularly do recommend you. I know that you've already started working directly with some of our customers, so I'm a massive advocate, and I would 100% recommend you to any other founders who want to build their personal brand. Now, in terms of like what other founders would benefit, I don't. As I say, the reason we've got you is because I'm not the expert on founder-led branding, but I think what I would say is that to succeed with it, you've got to be prepared to do some of the work. You're amazing at doing almost all of the work, but you've still got to be there in terms of ideation and participation, comment, post replies, all of that good stuff is super important. So I think, you've got to be prepared to put some work in. But I think crucially, if you've got a point of view on something that the people you're trying to influence care about, and you've got something genuinely meaningful to say, then I imagine that founder-led, personal branding is going to be a great fit for you, whatever business you're in, because, I think you need to have a really, really clear understanding of what you want to say and what value that's bringing. And if you do have that, or at least have the bones of an idea there, and I'm sure you, Eleanor, will help people tease that out, then it's going to be a great route for you. It certainly proved so for me. And, I think that spending time, building your personal brand, it sounds, spending business money on building a personal brand, it maybe sounds slightly self-indulgent, but actually it plays a massive role in, elevating the business in general, building awareness and trust, as we were saying earlier. And I think that will bring, and does bring, direct opportunities. But it's also going to accelerate the full sales cycle. It's going to help influence people that you already know, that maybe or you are already talking to. So I think it has a really, really holistic benefit on the business. And, if you've got this kind of clear unifying idea in terms of, the value that you bring, and there's some uniqueness in that, then I think it could be a really powerful strategy. And, it seems to be for us, and hopefully I'm sure it will continue to be so.
Amazing. That's a brilliant note to end on. Thanks a lot for your kind words.
Absolutely. Thanks, Eleanor.